maybe we can start off with a quick bio first and start off from there.
Okay, obviously from my accent, I live down under, as the intro on your page says. God, I've actually done everything from nursing to apple picking, of course, college study. My background academically is in social anthropology and comparative philosophy. I'm a trained teacher. I have Master of Educational Studies, and obviously have been fascinated with esoteric material. Well, I can say seriously, looking at the whys and the wherefores, like what the reality we think we're living in is not what we think it is, probably the last 25 years. Although as a child, I had absolutely extraordinary experiences that I thought were quite normal. And as I grew up, I realized they really weren't that normal, but you learn to hide. It's quite a different era now in the last 20 years. People are much more accepting of these anomalous experiences, I suppose you could call them, and there's a lot of research. Kevin Ring went into it. To add that, I was quite psychic as a child, again, which I thought everybody could do, which everybody can do.
Could you give the listeners maybe a title from the author you mentioned?
Kevin Ring, Lessons in the Light.
Oh,
that's on
yes, I've heard of that book.
Very, very good. All Ken's work is, if you're into near-death experiences, Ken's actually a personal friend of mine, not wanting to name drop, but because I had a very intense near-death experience in 1979, and then, of course, that boosted up all the sensitivities to...
yeah, that's definitely something we want to get into a little bit later. I'd love to dive into that, because that to me was fascinating also. But, yeah, please go on.
Oh, well, that's basically as best as I can do a bio.
That was great enough. I'm pretty sure the people can get a great understanding from that. And I like to tell the people one of the main reasons I wanted to get Miss Christine Hell on was the energy I felt from her and the positivity, of course. And that's what this show is all about. And trying to display a positive notion or ideas instead of all the conspiracy, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm not too sure how are you on that whole subject of conspiracy. I know you dig into it a little, but
yeah, it's quite interesting because you're asking that question, because I've had quite a few conversations with friends in the last week about this sort of thing. Conspiracy theories, of course, I'm probably always the first one to have an open mind and I'm quite, how could you put, more than skeptical, probably cynical about, the powers that be that like to keep control and will do virtually anything to keep control. But conversely, we're saying, it's positive rather than negative. The whole thing is that, when powers want to keep people from understanding their true selves, they'll use fear. Fear is a great weapon, and as we can see, Hitler was a master at it, keep people frightened of their neighbours. And
if we refer to the documentary by, I forgot the documentary, the guy's name, but I think it was Bowling for Columbine.
Oh, yes,
where the whole thing was basically showing you about this old fear tactic, and that's one of the reasons I really don't like getting into the conspiracy, because to me it really is just that.
Well, you're acknowledging the fear and
that's great to do, but
you acknowledge the fear and just think, that's where you are, but I'm not buying into it, and that's where people get their power back. And in these conversations I've had, and like you, I agree, let's not dwell on this, except it's there.
I sort of got that vibration. I definitely got that vibration from you, so I sort of wanted to bring that up and throw that out there so people don't get anything twisted on what we're going to be getting into tonight, because I definitely just want to keep it on subject and what I really like getting into, which is the esotericism and the mysticism and all the ancient goods.
Yes.
I got a good first question. Which forms of the ancient esotericism did you start practicing, or do you practice?
Now that's an interesting. When I was 16, I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, which was quite interesting because I had been living
at
very
16. Huh? Wow, that's a real young age, huh?
Well, I wasn't a normal child. I think you got the narrative I sent you earlier this week of, like people were visiting me from almost, a very early age from memory, and they taught me many things, and so I probably had a slightly different maturity than other teenagers. They accelerated my
and that's
thinking.
That's definitely another topic I wanted to get into later too, because
the starseed children that are coming in more and more. I would have been one of the first. So
that's what I'm thinking. And then when you brought up about basically getting into it 25 years ago, that was around the time of that big jump start, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is. I mean, when I say getting into it 25 years ago, that was when I actually started really
seriously
exploring it theoretically. There were books coming out. Raymond Moody's book came out because I'd had this near-death experience back in '79, and because I had the advantage of having studied in the area, to me, the light merging with light, it was just so Buddhist, Anatman,
yes.
The merging that you did. So I wasn't sort of particularly thrown, well, it altered me dramatically, of course, but a lot of people without the background think they're going crazy. Well, I knew I didn't go crazy. I knew I just clinically died and come back. And so when Moody's book came out and then a whole string of other people were looking at near-death experience, of course, this is just amazing, how common this is. And that started me then in looking, because much more intelligent. Before that, you really had the Madame Blavatsky sort of thing in the New Age movement. No, it wasn't
that's
really...
the German psychic, right?
Yeah, she was...
the one that...
Eastern. She mixed Eastern with Theosophic. I think she began the Theosophic Society, didn't she, Stephen?
Yes. I also heard her getting a sort of a bad name through History Channel because they were trying to tie her into Hitler and all that, which I didn't really
know.
like.
I think she did fake a few things. I mean, I think there's some reliable sources that, she pushed a few boundaries that wasn't really kosher. But, I mean, she was just a precursor. And
did you ever hear of... That's the lady that Hitler actually got the whole concept of the Atlanteans and the...
Oh, okay.
And basing his white supremacy notion off of that, which is pretty... I hope that's not true, but, that's not coming from her. He just basically twisted it around and turned it into his own evil...
He did that with everyone. Look what he did with Nietzsche, the philosopher.
Oh, man.
Yeah, poor old Nietzsche, he was just like being his ivory tower philosophy, and this guy comes along and twists it all around, and, God, man must have turned in his grave. But no, this is the positivity, you see, and I believe, speaking of movements, we had the 60s and 70s, we thought we were going to sort of change everything, and it didn't happen. We all ran back to, the jobs we were trained at from university. And
well, in the same aspect, I feel it really did. Because I think without it, and we look at the world today, I don't think it would be, I actually think it would be a lot worse.
Actually, it's an interesting point because it did break down, all those barriers that, your whole life.
Those boundaries that was
2.5 kids, and you've got choices and things.
And then
like
the racial divide and all that at the time
too. Yes, of course. Yes, so that's a very good point, Stephen.
Yeah. So when I look into history and I see the whole, I hate to call it the hippie movement or the, I like to call it the indigo movement. it really was inspiring, finally seeing people gather together in a collective like that, which really hasn't been done since then. And then if you look at the new Woodstock, oh my God, that was a travesty. I don't know if you seen what happened to that new Woodstock they recently, I think it was maybe close to 10 years ago.
No, I don't know about that.
People were getting raped and this and that. And it was basically the resurrection of Woodstock, and it just was, you couldn't resurrect something like that is what I was guessing.
God, no, it was of its own zeitgeist. I can remember, of course, I'm old enough, I'm just over 50 now, of being at a young age, I think I was 15 in a Vietnam moratorium in Melbourne, Australia. And there were just, for Australian standards, it was just massive. There were just tens and tens and tens of thousands that stopped the whole city. And I can remember, all chanting, give peace a chance, and, the energy and the power in there. You just felt, oh, my God, the world is just going to so change. These are the young people, we're the opinion leaders of tomorrow. We will change the world with this energy, So it's quite hard.
It's some emotion in me hearing that from you, because, you don't hear about that today. Give peace a chance and bring the love back and come together as one and come together. It's it's so foreign now, and I'm worried I'm still young. I'm in my late 20s, but I'm just worried about my own generation is what it is.
I would give a lot of hope, and I think this is how we sort of started talking about doing a program, Stephen, with what we call these star seeds. I mean, people call them crystal children, indigo children. I just like the star seeds as a nice general one. And also I don't want to create a sort of an apartheid that some children might be a little bit more advanced than others,
Oh, that would be a definite. That would have to be a definite.
That's right, because being a trained teacher, I mean, I don't teach very often, but being a trained teacher...
You have it firsthand. Yeah, you're firsthand with these children, which is...
I mean, I can walk into a classroom of, say, Year 8, and because I myself come from that odd DNA, and I can actually scan the class and know immediately which kids have got this sort of quirk in their DNA. And I would say in most classrooms you're looking at about 40% at least. And the younger you go, if you go into a primary school, it actually gets higher in a classroom.
The higher the percentage, right?
Yeah, and they are amazing kids. And the thing is that people say, you just do teaching so easy, you've got class control. And I thought, I don't, because, see, the kids recognise me too, right? They do not know it consciously, but unconsciously they recognise the aura, and they want to listen to you, because these kids are so bright. This is why you've got a lot of this, attention deficit syndrome. In Australia they drug them with this thing called Ritalin. I don't know what it's called in the US, but
it's under the same term. The same dastardly term.
Skyrocketing. But I've taught kids that a drug out of their brain, and thank God they're still hanging from the rafters if they can. They should be asleep and comatose.
So you would say there's no real drug that can suppress star children.
Well, it does. That's the problem.
That's what it
because
does,
what happens, these kids are very unusual, and because they think so differently, they may not show their intelligence in conventional academic intellectual pursuits. But their creativity is unbelievable, and their insights are unbelievable. I actually held, because my background, when I said is comparative philosophy, I held the year before last, because I was brought into this class because the teacher was sick, and I thought, what am I going to do with these kids? At Year 9, right, I actually had a philosophy class with them. We were going into the Greek philosophies. These kids were quoting, basically from Socrates.
Oh, my God.
And then a teacher walked past and walked in and said, I can't believe this. And I said, these kids get dumbed down.
Yes.
What they're able to do and understand is phenomenal. And it wasn't
totally
5
agree.
kids. It wasn't 5 kids participating. We're talking virtually the whole class. There were a couple that just sat back and listened. And it was the most amazing experience. And that's one of the reasons I don't spend a lot of time in schools, because it makes my heart break.
Wow. Just seeing the state of these kids, right?
Sorry?
Just seeing the state of the kids, right?
Oh,
just being so withheld from their naturalness and
now, I think, I think that they get controlled. Nobody understands. Their parents can't handle it. Their teachers don't know how to do it, because the teaching system's way back in the 19th century anyway. And these kids know that this is not for them, so they rebel and they have behaviour problems. So, the whole trouble is that sadly they may go on and do things like trying to anaesthetise themselves with taking drugs, rather than, having their unusual mentality supported. Now, a lot of them do get through. I mean, and this is a numbers game now. Like, I was one of the first, 50 years ago to come in, and there were probably a couple of thousand or whatever in the world. I don't know the
maybe you and the originals like Richard Boylan and Paula Harris and people like that, right?
Yep. And for example, my children, I've got 2 children, and both of them have this odd DNA. And for example, my son at 14 was doing advanced trigonometry. He ended up going to university at, I think he started about 15 or 16 because I refused to put him in the schooling system. So he would go on, and you've got to get used to these strange kids. Like, I can remember when he was 8 or 9 or whatever, I got up one morning and all my cupboards were completely pulled apart because he was taking the magnets out of them.
So you would say he was a hyperactive child?
Oh, yeah. And moving
that's
furniture
what they try
at 3
to claim
in the morning,
yeah.
And the whole thing is you allow these kids to do this.
Yes, you know what, that is so funny because I also have 2 kids at my young age, and of course they matured me real quick. Mm-hmm. But I noticed with my daughter, it's the same exact thing. It's like you cannot get anything over on these kids, and I remember kids maybe just a generation before her where they weren't even that advanced. In, like you were saying, 14 doing trigonometry, that's mind-boggling. Yep.
And I can remember him watching one program on particle accelerators. They've got this, I think in Texas you guys got this massive particle accelerator.
That's round
particles.
And it goes in a round configuration.
That's right. Yep, and they smash them and they take photographs and things like that. Anyway, he sat in trance with this program, and then he came up to me later and he says, I know why that's caused.
Wow.
And he says, I'm going to write them a letter. And I said, sweetheart, don't write them a letter. They're not going to listen to you. They're on $100,000 a year. If they haven't worked it out now, getting a letter from an 8-year-old, they're not going to listen. And he says, but it's so obvious, and he did all the maths to it. He had little exercise books he'd do them in. And, the world has to start listening to these kids because they're in phenomenal numbers.
Definitely.
I mean, he's now, he's your age. He's 28, 29 this year,
Wow.
And so...
Is he still in the same field?
No, he did classics. He did ancient languages because he had a great talent. He was learning ancient Greek and Latin, I think, for about 10. But he's gone into town planning now, and he's married with a baby, and but he very accepts his area, although he's terribly normal, exceptionally bright, obviously. But he. Whereas my daughter's been on Blog Talk Radio because of her experiences.
So you also have a son and a daughter too, huh? You're another lucky one like me.
And of course they're both unusual. So I mean,
course.
you could write a tome on the childhood experiences.
Did they follow in your footsteps, or are they totally different than you?
Well, I suppose they're like, I think any child, there's similarities and differences. I mean, they're highly psychic. My daughter, in particular, now she's just accessing it. She had an experience the other night of exchange of energies, and so we sat around talking about that. That's on Aware Radio, by the way, Sonia Lilly.
Oh, yeah. I'm a very good friend of Chad, and he sent me that link. I'm actually going to listen to that tonight. I was too in tune with your stuff, so... I had to stay on point with what's going on tonight.
Now,
but
she's
that's fascinating.
Very, very advanced. They're very, very evolved. But so you can imagine, I was trying to explain to her this week that, okay, my DNA is quite odd, from the way I came in. Like, for example, my mother told me recently over Christmas, I never heard this story, but when she was pregnant with me, she couldn't bear to even look at meat. We're talking 50 years ago. And she took up yoga. And she did yoga all the pregnancy. And when I was born, there was absolutely no pain. And I never cried.
That's the answer, right? That answers it all right there. Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
You can imagine then what the advantage would be on the greater powers. I'm not saying they're ETs. I'm not saying, say, greater... more evolved energies that are trying to look after the earth now.
Definitely, and these yoga masters and the Reiki people, they're basically antennas for this. So
yes.
that's definitely how you attain the power.
So you can just imagine then that the opportunity of having, say, for example, in a pure clinical sense, someone with a DNA like mine, what a fantastic advantage, right, to when I have children, that can be accelerated even more. And then when they have children, it can be accelerated even more. So what we're looking at is getting these incredibly positive, we're going back a little bit of a full circle here from to the original question, that if these powerful, entities are coming in as humans and functioning and in the world, they are giving out like 100-fold what a normal person would be in just being present. And shifting the earth plane, just shifting the vibrational plane. So you become, everybody gets sort of dragged in the wake of this energy, which is why people are experiencing this quickening. Everyone's saying time feels like it's really speeding up, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. And it has to do with the whole 2012 effect, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And so these entities, these star seeds are coming in, and they're accelerating this incredibly. Because if you've got someone of that involvement, as I say, giving out for, just as a ballpark, 100 times more positive energy than a person that hasn't got that electromagnetic field or whatever energy you want to call it,
the auric
not
field.
As involved. So it's fantastic. It goes into exponential. For every one star seed has as much energy as 100 normal people who are asleep.
Wow. I could definitely see that.
So what's basically happening is this accelerating force is happening. So people the fear will just fall away. It will just fall away. And it's just a place where like attracts like. If the energy is too high for negative people, well, they just have to go to another realm.
Totally. Have you did any research into Richard Boylan's writings and all that?
Yes, a lot. In fact, Richard Boylan and I have talked a few years ago when I started my master's.
You are a lucky person.
Well, you can always just email him. He's very approachable.
I guess I'm just really afraid of the guy. He knows too much.
Well, then he can pass it on to you. Never be frightened of people.
Yeah.
There's people that want to get their word out, so he'd probably love to be interviewed.
It's more of a humbling thing, I would call it. I'm just too humble to even contact the guy because I'm really deep into his philosophies and his research. And did you hear the I'm not too sure if it was him or Paula Harris, and they were talking about the research on the DNA or what was the genome. It's called the genome pool, which consists of 213 slots. And basically you could see those on like the CSI episodes where they're pulling up like the DNA and they're showing these slots, and there's only like 4% out of these 213 slots that are open is what they're showing. And that due to these star seeds and the indigos and the people before them, they're advancing this genome code where they're actually upgrading from, I guess, this 4 percentile to a higher percentage, which only could mean a higher immunity. And then what the scientists were basically getting at, which was if you can fill up these 213 genomes that we have basically wide open, if we were to fill that up, we would basically be immortal. That's
right. Yeah. And this is the point it crossed my mind before to make and didn't, is that these starseed people with this altered DNA is actually our true potential. The idea of looking at them as ETs in a human body, I don't think is really quite the right way to go. They're actually who we should be or becoming, getting there to come. I was shown some years ago what's actually going on. This is probably a little bit more visual, but similar to what the scientists know. I didn't know that, by the way, about these genomes, but it doesn't surprise me in the least. I was shown the picture of the double helix, okay?
Oh, and, my God. Let's get into that. Let's get into that then.
And in this double helix, it was quite interesting because it's like a chemoelectrical sort of energy that goes up sort of like a kundalini sort of thing, okay?
Wow.
And what happens we'll use normal people and starseed for the sake of the conversation. In normal people, it demonstrated this chemoelectrical energy sort of goes up half and then drops down. Then goes up half and then drops down.
Oh, sort of like the old scientific project with the electrical electrons or the electricity going through the two, going up and down those copper wires. Sort of similar to that.
No.
If you've ever seen that. Yeah, that's like
This was like in a dream, so it had all the bells and whistles of light and you know, it was almost like...
I could almost visualize what you were telling me right there.
Exactly, that's why the listeners might be interested in. Whereas the ones that have the starseed, if you like, that have the different DNA, they then showed how that energy goes right up to the top of the double helix and comes back down. And so it's like everything that is potentially there in the DNA can be activated. So what you're describing about genome is quite interesting. That means that it might be a step further, that as these genomes fill or a greater percentile is activated, well, then that's going to be more powerful, that chemoelectrical energy, within the double helix.
Yes, because scientists actually, he totally approved of it. The scientist that was doing this experiment totally approved of that. So he was basically saying if we were to just add on 2 more slots, your immunity would already automatically go up double. And then they're showing that, what is it? I would have to say 5 out of 6 slots out of 213. So what they're basically bringing up, what are these open slots? Yeah. And it's basically throwing out the philosophy, are they meant to be filled? Yes.
It's probably beyond our imagination at this point, the possibility.
Oh, totally. I'm mind-boggled on that. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that, because that whole double helix, that's fascinating to me. Just being able to see that at a young age. How old were you when you got that experience?
Oh, my God. I mean, it was interesting with the light people, which I remember quite distinctly, particularly in that narrative that I sent. I presume I was about 8, more or less, around there. And they would actually come and teach me. And I call them light people. To this day, I call them light people. They to me, they said they don't live on any particular planet. They can shape-shift between dimensions, but they're here as looking after the Earth. And
this is astounding to me, because I totally believe in this. And you first brought it up in, I think, one of your episodes on Thought Waves Radio. I was totally blown away, because I get contacted by these things too, not directly, but I see them.
Yes.
Basically, what people would what people would consider UFOs, I see in vast numbers.
Yes.
And
why would you say that, Stephen? Why do you think that would be? I mean, my view, so I ask you and then answer the question, but I'd like that you're sensitized to it, and so you can see in further spectrums than the basic sensual visual from your retina. This is like being able to peek through into other dimensions, and you see them and someone else doesn't. It's because your
you would have
energy
to say that this definitely coincides with the upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So would you agree with that, Stephen?
I would totally agree with that. And what's funny, I have a buddy of mine. He's a little bit younger, he's about 26, and he sees the exact same thing as me, but he's more advanced than me, where he can see smaller objects that are so tiny where it takes me 5 minutes just to even catch these things.
Yes.
And what I figured out with these light beings, I hope I ain't getting off the cusp here, but what I figured out with these light beings is basically whatever I'm thinking of or whatever we're chatting about, it's basically trying to confirm what we were just speaking of, is what it feels like. And we'll definitely dive back in a couple seconds behind and see what we're talking about, and it's usually something esoteric or in the mysticism field. And what I do is every time I see these beings, I try to lock in what I just learned or sponged, and hopefully try to attain that later. But, you know, it's just so much.
If you transfer knowledge without you being aware of, I think you might find as time goes on, or you might even have evidence in yourself now that all of a sudden you have this insight and you think, my God, where did I learn that from? And
oh my God, you're freaking me out now, because I get that on a daily, and it's like almost like a click in my brain that is that confirmation. Besides just a theory, there's like a click behind it, which is like trying to startle me to totally look at what I'm thinking of.
Isn't that fascinating? And I think the idea of resonance is very important too. You know, in this information age, we've got a hell of a lot more information flying about than knowledge. There's not a lot of wisdom. And so sorting out the wheat from the
I like how you brought that up.
You know, well, it's just impossible to know what's the truth. And I found the rule of thumb, and I hear it more and more with people like yourself, that they're opening up and getting these insights and understand that I've called it resonance. There's a resonance, just that's right. That's right. And I went, maybe not the other thing, but that's right. And it's that resonance, I think, which is a very good navigational tool for us through life in all sorts of situations. You know, it's your intuition, basically, but much more honed, so it hits you like, no, that's true, you know?
You know what's really scaring me, Christine, is when I'll go and Google whatever I was just thinking of after seeing one of these light beings, I would say 99% of the time I would find exactly what I was just thinking, meaning it wasn't just a theory. And I usually use Wikipedia, which is pretty accurate, and I'll find everything that I was just thinking of. And to me, I'm hoping that I ain't right, because you know I don't know where this stuff's coming from, and to prove it to my own self, it just really freaks me out.
Well, I think flowing with it, because proof is a very odd thing. People say, seeing is believing, but actually not necessarily. You know, if people are so blind and they see something and it's too hard for them, if they have a bizarre experience, they suppress it because it's too hard for them. So the idea of a proof is very hard. Again, the resonance, I think, comes in. It's like, what is this going on? It's because we're interconnected, because we're not discrete. Our mind is a mind at large, connected into a quantum sea that incorporates the whole universe, is of it, and we only access what our energy allows us to access, because as our energy goes up, we access more.
Wow. That was actually the perfect segue into one of the other subjects that we wanted to get into, which was the quantum, I would call quantum metaphysics, because they're almost the same. Would you say they're similar?
Yes, it's very interesting. I actually did my master's thesis on this. It was on how children learn. Of course, it's not mentioned in the thesis. I'm doing it as a learning methodology for these children that are coming in now. And how is it that they can learn and often have insight into an answer?
How long ago did you do
this? And they haven't done the logical, process on that. Sorry, Stephen?
How long ago was this that you started this?
My master's thesis, I did that in 2006.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought you did this maybe during the 70s or something.
No. I started doing formal education later in life. But this was when the quantum, and there was a lot with quantum, so you're calling it quantum metaphysics. It's a very apt word. I call it quantum sea because a lot of people in the area, in the literature, call it a quantum sea. And I like that idea because it's a sea. It encompasses it all.
Yeah.
We're a drop in it, but when we're in it, we're merged. And you can't.
I really don't like the whole quantum theory, because that sort of disproves the fact of it all when you really look into it. And it's still a theory, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you're going to look at the very strict scientific quantum theory, we don't get too scientific for our listeners. And, of course, I'm not a mathematician, so it's how I've looked at the commentators. They call it a quantum theory. So quantum theory, there are problems with it, and this is where string theory has come in. String theory is very interesting to overcome the problems with quantum. I think they're both probably right, but I think it's a turn of phrase needed to talk about authors like Russell Tark. There's a fantastic book I've actually got on the desk before me now. Lynn.
So you would say that would be the genuine article to read then, huh?
Oh yes, Lynn McTaggart's very good. It's called The Field: The Quest for the Secret Force of the Universe. Now she's a journalist, but it's a brilliant book.
That's a pretty long title there, huh?
Oh yeah. But
what was it again? What was it again?
It's called The Field: The Quest for the Secret Force of the Universe, and it's
I'm definitely writing this. I'm writing all this down for later on tonight, so I can do all my research, of course.
Yes, and that's very interesting because she interviews these people that are taking quantum physics or taking the whole idea of subatomic physics out of a laboratory sort of context and into its application in the macroscopic world.
And for the listeners
Sorry?
And for the listeners that don't that might not know about quantum physics, that's exactly what it is, basically, right? The study of the subatomic level.
Yes. And it kept on getting broken down and down and down until,
finite.
A particle and also energy. It's either or, and this is the conundrums of it. And Einstein, he didn't agree with quantum theory. He called it action at a distance. And if he'd done it, yes, he didn't agree with it. To him, it was too weird. It was too weird for him, but of course he's been disproven since because quantum theory is still the most compelling, post-Newtonian theory that we've got. More powerful than string theory.
Would you say, totally. Would you say Tesla would be more aligned with that instead of
I would say
good old Einstein?
Yeah, I would say so, because Tesla also made applications. Obviously, a bomb got created from Einstein's theory.
Yeah.
But Tesla's an interesting one to bring up. You know that when he was offered the Nobel Prize, he knocked it back?
Yes, I heard of that.
And do you remember the reason? He said, because I wasn't the one who invented these things. I wasn't one who had theory. Oh,
my God, don't tell me that, because that's freaky. It just makes you want to read up on it.
Yeah. Tesla lived in some forest, really isolated area.
I think it was Colorado somewhere. That was basically when he moved to America. I'm not sure, but I know he was from Serbia.
Yes.
So that forest I think you're talking about might have been when he stayed in Colorado, and I think I heard a story where he shut down the whole power grid there, and he was kicked out.
Well, he claimed, and he had journals apparently that were taken when he died, because of course the government, came in and he was hardly cold, and they took all his papers out of his office. But he actually claimed in journals that ETs came and demonstrated to him. They'd actually visit and show him how to create these energy appliance applications, basically.
Oh my God, that is too crazy. I got to definitely get into more Tesla because he would be one of the originals if he's referring to extraterrestrials back then during the early 30s and 20s. That's just amazing.
Yep. And of course we all know that Tesla had created engines that didn't need petrochemicals, didn't need
the zero-point energy, right?
Yeah, and of course all the oil companies bought it up and bought up the patents and then shelved it.
Ridiculous. Do you remember that movie with Keanu Reeves that was on that subject? I'm not sure. It was like Breaking Points or something like that.
Oh, no, it sounds fantastic, though.
Yeah, it was with Keanu Reeves, and he basically had the same idea or technology where he was using hydropower. Okay. And, of course, they show how the government didn't want it to happen, and he actually powered the thing up and created this infinite power through the hydro technology he was using, basically through water. And the government came and was trying to kill him, of course. Morgan Freeman's also in the movie, too. You might want to check that out.
Lineup. Is it a true story or is it a fictional?
I think it's based on something that might be true, but to me it seems totally plausible.
What's it called, Stephen?
I think it's Breaking Point. It's been so long, and it wasn't that much of a popular movie, but it has Keanu Reeves and Morgan Freeman, so it shouldn't be
I can always
too hard.
follow it up through the cast. No, I'm fascinated looking at this. And this is the interesting thing because ETs have been looking after, as we know, all through, ancient literature, drawings, etc. That they've been coming and helping humankind or watching over them for millennia upon millennia.
You're talking 6,000 years, basically, since the Sumerians, if you ever delved into that culture. and they were being contacted by what they call the Anunnaki, and everybody in the chat room's actually chatting about this subject, but basically old ancient alien contacts is what they're chatting about in the room. But
oh wow,
the subject of, do you know anything about the subject of the Anunnakis? And
no, I don't. I do know that Sumeria was the first to develop writing, being cuniform, and it was the basis of Western civilization. Full stop.
Yeah, basically, from what I know, they created all man's first. All of them, from the wheel to mathematics.
Yes, and astronomy probably, yes.
Oh, totally. And trip off this, Christine. They were the first to document basically the alignment of the stars, the galaxy, and it's all on these cylinder seals and stone tablets that are found in ancient Sumeria. And you ask yourself, how did these people know this? And without a telescope, not even without glasses, of course, how were they able to see into the future? And they were actually the ones that put out that there was 12 planets instead of the 9 we supposedly know of.
Okay.
And it's a crazy story, but the reason I brought it up was the whole fact of how I guess they were the first culture that was visited or documented being visited by the ETs. And they also show how the ETs gave them the upgrade then.
Yes.
Which is totally fascinating to me. And I'm sure if you keep looking down the line from them, you would find more cultures similar. But that's actually the first one I know of.
Just look how fast we've evolved. I mean, the Industrial Revolution was only, 150 years ago?
Oh, my God.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, let alone if you go back further, like by the time, and I'm not sure of my millions of years and my, Jurassic periods or whatever, by the time that mankind got upright, right, and had a brain and started languaging, it's like, I think if somebody said if it's like a full day, the time we became creative, like starting to do, rock drawings and things like that, is like, the 11th to midnight. The 11 seconds, it's just so exhilarated. Like, you just look, like 20 years ago, it was unheard of, the computer capabilities.
Yes. Oh, my God. I could look back then and see what we had then. We barely had calculators that were smaller than a desktop computer. So.
Well, I can remember back in the 1970s, the physics department at Melbourne University had their computer mainframe type of setup on 3 floors in the physics building. Right?
Yeah,
3 floors.
I can totally see that. I can see that.
And it was only 10 years ago, what that could have done, right, was actually in a pocket calculator.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years ago, it could be in a pocket calculator, so it's more advanced now. So where is this advancement coming? I suggest, my theory is, and of course it's only my theory, but I'll throw it out to the listeners, is that there is no real such thing as a human. I believe that we've been so fiddled with in our DNA over time that you can't actually say. That's why people can't find a missing link. Where is this between the ape and the human?
Oh, my God. I'm glad
there's no missing link, because it's almost like we're literally very cosmopolitan, like America, Australia, like America. We've got Vietnamese people, we've got, African
so many
people.
different,
and they intermarry, and, I went to Melbourne some months ago and I hadn't been there for quite a long time because I live in a very isolated place in Western Australia, beautiful beaches and things, but in Melbourne, and I was amazed. If you get on a tram, public transport, you're lucky out of 50 people on there that, there is more than 10 that are Caucasian.
Oh,
so if you look at that analogy, that's what we are. We're a conglomerate of different species as opposed to different, I don't like the word race, what I mean, different country, national groups. So instead of being different national groups, we're different species. And so what is a human? Well, we don't really know. And I have a friend, this is so funny because we've only got a few minutes too, haven't we, Stephen? I've known for many, many, many years. He's a very bright person. And I spoke to him last year, and, what are you up to? Because we want to catch up about once a year. And he said, I'm doing volunteer work with the SETI program.
Oh, hold on 1 minute, Chris. There's a caller, but I'd like for them to hold on until you're done with this real quick.
I'll be very brief then.
Yes.
And he said, because I have so much data and radio, signals I've got to get through. And I said, they have to stop looking out there. They're walking amongst us. Yeah. Yes, your caller.
Yes, let's get into this caller. 703. You're on?
I'm on. Hi, Christine. I didn't mean to interrupt your wonderful program. I came in late, but I'm going to download this. It's absolutely great. And your name is Stephen, host?
Yes.
Yes. This is Charn Parker. I have a show here.
Greetings. I definitely know of you.
You're in my specials place,
I definitely know of you, and I love your show.
Oh, I wish I had known about this earlier. Christine, I'm going to download and listen to everything you said. But, Christine, I have two things I'm going to say. Christine, would you agree with me, even though many people need to have the study and interest, knowing from quantum physics, to really turn their belief around a little bit is what happened. I believe that a lot of this in our ancient, even Jesus spoke about a lot of these things, but we didn't understand it. Do you believe that, Christine?
I do believe it, and I think you brought up a very important point, John, because the interesting thing is, as I mentioned, that I based this new idea of mind at large on quantum theory to put into an academic master's thesis.
But it certainly opens the door.
I could not have done that. I could not have done that probably 5 years ago, because I would be held down. And this is where people are getting a scientific, maybe not proof, but a scientific framework for these things. And that's the language I like using, because people say, oh, this hocus pocus. I said, well, hang on. This is actually the cutting edge of science. And everyone thinks scientists are our new gods. So
no, quantum physics. I mean, I read it 10 years ago, just one book. And I said, wow, there it is right there. Even though I'm not a real physics or scientific type person in that sense, it was enough to open up to me. And I want to ask one other thing. Stephen, you mentioned the Neberu, the Anunnakis. Have you read any of those books? You're speaking of Zechariah Sitchin, right?
Yes, I'm actually...
What have you read? How many books have you read?
I've read, I think, 6 and a few audio books, but I've heard maybe 2,000 hours of Mr. Sitchin. I'm probably one of his biggest cohorts. But.
Because I can imagine too. Here, Christine is talking, and she's saying all these things, and you're thinking. I thought Stephen's thinking.
Totally aligns, right?
Beg your pardon?
Totally aligns, right, with the Sitchin work.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and of course, you know about the atom and all that.
Yeah.
Stephen, I'm going to give you a telephone number. It's on my website, but it's open, so I don't mind. Can I give it to you?
Yes.
Stephen, when you get a chance, give me a call. It's 703. This is my show line at home. 527-1994. I'd like to talk, not to be a guest.
9994?
Yeah, I'd just like to talk to you about this, or I can call you. I'm in Virginia, but if you're like me, you've got long distance for, unlimited and everything.
Yeah.
So whenever you get a chance, give me a call, and I'd
love to set up a show. I actually did one before, and hopefully we could also get Christine to throw in a few of her cents on that too.
That would be great, because
I actually spoke to Christine, and she hasn't read up on the Sitchin work.
Oh, it's something else, isn't it, Stephen?
Christine?
Oh.
No, I haven't. I've got to go there.
Not yet,
Yeah.
Not yet,
Anyway, let me let the two of you go, and Stephen, I hope to hear from you. And Christine,
John,
I'm going to...
Before you go,
listen to your show. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, Charn.
Sir, yes, sir.
Did you have any other questions?
No, I just want to say to Christine how much I've enjoyed her, and I will hear the whole show after you're all through. And I want to bring that up about the Anunnaki and the Neberu to you, and you're going to find something very interesting that I have to say to you.
Thank you kindly, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk again. What a great guy.
What is his show? He didn't quite get...
It's the Charn Parker Show. I think that what it should be linked under. Yes, but he's a very informed, enlightened guy, and I'd definitely like to talk to him on another note, which is sort of off the topic, but it of course coincides.
No, it does, and it's always nice when you have somebody ring in who, does set you straight or point you in a direction.
Oh man, I would love for people to do that. you know, just for us to get that extra light, too. That's the whole purpose, I would say.
Yes.
But what's sort of sad for me is that the hour is done, and we didn't even get to get on metaphysics and your book.
Another time, maybe. I had a ball.
Oh, I did too. And oh my God, do you know about when they talk about the alien abduction and you're missing a few hours? It seems like that just happened to me right now, and it seems like this conversation was only 10 minutes. To be serious with you. It does.
Well, you enjoy the book, John. Stephen. You enjoy the book.
And, I'm definitely
possibly we can have you on our Thought Waves show.
Well, I also remember you maybe being available to do a few more shows. Maybe I can get you on my show again and maybe get on your show.
No, that'd be great.
Because I definitely love talking to you.
Because I'm in Friday morning and you're in Thursday night, aren't you?
Wow, yes. You're totally right. So I didn't even get to talk about my fascination for Australia either. So
we have to do this again, Stephen.
Definitely.
You take care, and thank you very much for having me.
It's an honor speaking with you, and I totally appreciate it, and you have a lovely evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yes, everybody, that was Miss Christine Hale, the author of the Esoteric Dictionary. I suggest everybody go to Google or Amazon and type that in, Esoteric Dictionary, and order yourself a copy. I'm definitely about to dig into that for the next month or so and totally soak it in, because to me it's the most light I've ever heard being spoken. This lady definitely lets off an ultraviolet ray that crosses country, like I told her. Just the first time emailing her and getting the vibration from her, I felt it. So I was very, very struck to be able to do an interview with this lovely lady, and hopefully we'll have her back on again. And like I said, the hour went too fast. I wish we could have got onto her book and all the other subjects that we were supposed to, but we definitely knocked out the starseed. And look into her information on our website, which is quantum-insight.com, and look into her link, and you could order the book from there too. And you'll definitely get enlightened if you check out our work, because I have. And to top it all off, if we're able to extend another interview, then we'll be able to knock out all those other subjects we were referring to. But I had a great time, and Miss Christine definitely tackled a lot of the subject matter in a detailed fashion, which I really loved. And and basing his white supremacy notion off of that, which is pretty. I hope that's not true, but that's not coming from her. He just basically twisted it around and turned it into his own evil.
He did that with everyone. Look what he did with Nietzsche, the philosopher.
Oh man.
Yeah, poor old Nietzsche, he was just like being his ivory tower philosophy, and this guy comes along and twists it all around, and, God, they must have turned in his grave. But no, this is the positivity, you see, and I believe, speaking of movements, we had the 60s and 70s, we thought we were going to sort of change everything, and it didn't happen. We all ran back to, the jobs we were trained at from university. And
well, in the same aspect, I feel it really did. Because I think without it, and we look at the world today, I don't think it would be, I actually think it would be a lot worse.
Actually, it's an interesting point, because it did break down, all those barriers that, your whole life
those boundaries that was
2.5 kids, and, you've got choices and things like that.
And then the racial divide and all that at the time,
too. Yes, of course. That's a very good point, Stephen.
Yeah, so when I look into history and I see the whole, I hate to call it the hippie movement, or the, I like to call it the indigo movement, it really was inspiring, finally seeing people gather together in a collective like that, which really hasn't been done since then. And then if you look at the new Woodstock, oh my God, that was a travesty. I don't know if you seen what happened to that new Woodstock they recently, I think it was maybe close to 10 years ago.
No, I don't.
That's one of the reasons I really don't like getting into the conspiracy, because to me it really is just that.
Well, you're acknowledging the fear and so
that's great to do, but
you acknowledge the fear and just think, that's where you are, but I'm not buying into it, and that's where people get their power back. And in these conversations I've had, and like you, I agree. Let's not dwell on this, except it's there.
I sort of got that vibration.
The fear.
Yeah, I definitely got that vibration from you. So I sort of wanted to bring that up and throw that out there, so people don't get anything twisted on what we're going to be getting into tonight. Because I definitely just want to keep it on subject and what I really like. Getting into, which is the esotericism and the mysticism and all the ancient goods.
Yes.
I got a good first question. Which forms of the ancient esotericism did you start practicing, or do you practice?
Now that's an interesting. When I was 16, I was initiated into Kriya Yoga, which was quite interesting because I had been living
at
very
16. Huh? Wow, that's a real young age, huh?
Well, I wasn't a normal child. I think you got the narrative I sent you earlier this week of, like people were visiting me from almost, a very early age from memory, and they taught me many things, and so I probably had a slightly different maturity than other teenagers. They accelerated my
and that's
thinking.
That's definitely another topic I wanted to get into later too, because
the starseed children that are coming in more and more. I would have been one of the first. So
that's what I'm thinking. And then when you brought up about basically getting into it 25 years ago, that was around the time of that big jump start, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is. I mean, when I say getting into it 25 years ago, that was when I actually started really exploring it theoretically. There were books coming out. Raymond Moody's book came out because I'd had this near-death experience back in 79, and because I had the advantage of having studied in the area, to me, the light merging with light, it was just so Buddhist, Anatman, the merging that you did. So I wasn't sort of particularly thrown, well, it altered me dramatically, of course, but a lot of people without the background think they're going crazy. Well, I knew I didn't go crazy. I knew I just clinically died and come back. And so when Moody's book came out, and then a whole string of other people were looking at near-death experience, of course, this was just amazing, how common this is. And that started me then in looking, because much more intelligent. Before that, you really had the Madame Blavatsky sort of thing in the New Age movement. No, it wasn't
that's
really.
The German psychic, right?
Yeah, she was
the one that
Eastern. She mixed Eastern with Theosophic. I think she began the Theosophic Society, didn't she, Stephen?
Yes, I also heard her getting a sort of a bad name through History Channel because they were trying to tie her into Hitler and all that, which I didn't really
know.
like.
I think she did fake a few things. I mean, I think there's some reliable sources that she pushed a few boundaries that wasn't really kosher. But I mean, she was just a precursor. And
did you ever hear of? That's the lady that Hitler actually got the whole concept of the Atlantis a little bit later. I'd love to dive into that because that to me was fascinating also. But please go on.
Oh, well, that's basically as best as I can do a bio.
That was great enough. I'm pretty sure the people can get a great understanding from that. And I like to tell the people one of the main reasons I wanted to get Miss Christine Hell on was the energy I felt from her and the positivity, of course. And that's what this show is all about. And trying to display a positive notion or ideas instead of all the conspiracy, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm not too sure how are you on that whole subject of conspiracy. I know you dig into it a little, but
yeah, it's quite interesting because you're asking that question because I've had quite a few conversations with friends in the last week about this sort of thing. Conspiracy theories, of course, I'm probably always the first one to have an open mind and am quite, how could you put, more than sceptical, probably cynical about, the powers that be that like to keep control and will do virtually anything to keep control. But conversely, we're saying, it's positive rather than negative. The whole thing is that, when powers want to keep people from understanding their true selves, they'll use fear. Fear is a great weapon, and as we can see, Hitler was a master at it, keep people frightened of their neighbours. And
if we refer to the documentary by, I forgot the documentary, the guy's name, but I think it was Bowling for Columbine.
Oh, yes,
where the whole thing was basically showing you about this old fear tactic, and maybe we can start off with a quick bio first, and start off from there.
Okay, obviously from my accent, I live down under, as the intro on your page says. I've actually done everything from nursing to apple picking, of course, college study. My background academically is in social anthropology and comparative philosophy. I'm a trained teacher. I have Master of Educational Studies, and obviously have been fascinated with esoteric material. I can say seriously, looking at the whys and the wherefores, like what the reality we think we're living in is not what we think it is, probably the last 25 years. Although as a child, I had absolutely extraordinary experiences that I thought were quite normal. And as I grew up, I realized they really weren't that normal, but you learn to hide. It's quite a different era now in the last 20 years. People are much more accepting of these anomalous experiences, I suppose you could call them, and there's a lot of research. Kevin Ring went into it. To add that, I was quite psychic as a child, again, which I thought everybody could do, which everybody can do.
Could you give the listeners maybe a title from the author you mentioned?
Kenneth Ring, Lessons in the Light.
Oh,
that's on
yes, I've heard of that book.
Very, very good. All Ken's work is, if you're into near-death experiences, Ken's actually a personal friend of mine, not wanting to name drop, but because I had a very intense near-death experience in 1979, and then, of course, that boosted up all the sensitivities to...
that's definitely something we want to get into